Okay, I am back online here. I think we're getting ready to go. I am going to share my screen here and hopefully we'll be able to walk through this and come up with a good outcome. I recorded a short video last night, but I had some technical issues and that I had some passwords with some of my databases, so I had to sort of reboot. So this is take two. My name is John Stritzinger, and I am in a computer science group project for Computer Science 547. And we are on team 4 of 6 teams, I believe. So there are roughly 30 students in the class, and we are all working on a group project. So each of us have to do the same project, but we're graded based on our team's performance. The structure of the project had phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 was we had to build a movie portal where you could buy tickets to different movies that were playing. And we could simulate a back office environment by creating lists of movies, and rather than speak to a database, we could just generate our own lists and sort of populate the screen from our lists. So that was a little easier than doing the entire end-to-end project. But there were some exceptions to that, and that was to create a login environment and a sign up page so that you could create users and put those into a database. We also had to present the movies to a user, and they had to be able to accept the movie, click on it, and sort of put it through this web API to the back end. So we started out by building what was a standard Microsoft environment. We built a public website. We stood up a IIS web server, and we built using an open source framework that my company had built that the instructor had approved. We built a simple HTML and JavaScript menu system, which I will show you in just a minute. So I was sort of working on the framing, the infrastructure, and the project itself. And essentially 3 of my peers wrote 3 different screens that were communicating to these APIs. So they built a login page, which I'm going to show you here, where you could simply sign in, and it communicates not to a local database, but across an infrastructure to a web server and does a post and get. So it is essentially a little fancier than normal, but they built a sign-in page, a sign-up page, and a movie tickets page. And those items we presented in our phase 1 presentation along with a cart. So the cart essentially just showed the tickets that you had bought. And we ran through that with the instructor. So our phase 1 requirements were done fairly easily. Myself and Liam were working on the project plan. And most of my stuff, I had the movie review process and a lot of the back office items, and they weren't even required for the phase 1 environment. So other than doing the project stuff, I was working ahead of the group with Entity Framework and sort of structuring out what we were doing. But along the way, what happened was the team, like 3 weeks in, decided to switch databases to MySQL. They decided to like pretty much overrule what I had started, and they wanted to move to React Native development environment. So they changed pretty much everything that we had done the first few weeks, and I lost personally over 21 days of development time. So I had done a lot of work already with a much fancier site, in my opinion. But the team made that decision, and I was on the team, so I was like, okay, then we'll just sort of, morph into what was going on next. But since we were all getting individual grades, to be fair, the 3 pages that were presented were done by other folks, although I had created similar ones just using different technologies. So it was sort of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But what was actually presented to the class was essentially these 4 screens that I just showed you, along with some back office technology that we just demonstrated that our interfaces worked at the back end. Now, I had presented a lot of other technology, and the team just decided not to integrate those into our first phase 1 presentation, but they are important today. So I'm going to run through them quickly. The first one is Now Playing. I built a list of movies that I personally like, and that I could get short clips from, mostly from YouTube sources. And not only does it play the clips, but I can play them all simultaneously. And I can pull up secondary pages on description by show times. So I built sort of an elaborate model for Now Playing that was much nicer than what the team had put forward in our initial presentation. So the only thing with this interface, what I did was I used link data to do what Microsoft calls a code behind. So you have an active server page, and it's relating directly to a code page, which is behind it. So while the other team members were driving REST APIs, this Now Playing page is communicating to a code behind. So it's using a different technology, but it is included in our book. And I thought it was more standard for what we were trying to do with the web interfaces. So essentially the lists and the show times that are being derived here at the top are all coming from a link source. And that was really my only requirement. So other than the review page, I built the Now Playing page, which was supposed to be the home page for our group project. So that was essentially my main task in phase 1, which I did complete. The other thing that I thought was, although we had only to do movies, I thought it would be more interesting if we included some other sort of open source projects that I have done. I just sort of linked in some other pages that were previously developed. First of all, I installed a mail server on our team platform in SwearEngine. They gave us a server and a virtual machine. Initially, we were using Unix, and then I had them install IIS and a full Windows load, mainly because we were being challenged with the loads on our PCs in the lab. So what we're using in class is very different from what the labs are set up for in the engineering school. So we were missing a lot of software. And when I put in tickets, they were like, well, if I provision this ticket, I have to change all of the PCs in the lab. And only the instructor can do that. So they essentially told me they wouldn't do it, but they did agree to build me a virtual machine. And that's what's driving this class website that I built up here. So you can see class.usc.team4.info. That is a public registered domain that I got for the team. I paid for it myself. And then I just pointed it at some IP addresses that we got here on campus. So here on campus, this site works. I built a public site at my home data center for the team to use, but they decided they didn't want to use it. So there was nothing else for me to really do. So anyway, I built a Now Playing, I built mail, and then I built music. So on my site, you can go in and listen to music. And these are just playlists from Google. So I just had some playlists that I had built before, and I just exposed those to a music page. Music is free in this model, so we're doing Cocky Entertainment, but I wanted to include music as well. So music and mail. So I wanted to be music, movies, and mail. The team so far has not agreed with me on that because they just thought it was something else that they had to worry about. But I told them this is just straight APIs to Google data sources. So I think it was only to add some interest. The other thing I did was, since they were shipping around databases, in my opinion, they were either coded poorly, like they didn't build a schema at all, or there was no data in it. So when I tried to load up what they were doing at home and in the lab, I couldn't get anything they were doing to work. And that was because the databases were not given to me. Initially we had talked about moving those around with Docker, but the way they had configured Docker, it was just downloading a blank MySQL database and didn't even have the logins created. So they essentially wasted several weeks of my time, which made me very angry. In addition to that, so while they were sort of messing around with that, I was like, well, what if I just create a WordPress environment and create my own platform to build movie tickets, which was what is in the requirement. And so I just installed an open source cart system. I built some products here, and you can add those to a cart and purchase those. So you can see it goes in. And this is just an open source WooCommerce environment. It goes into WordPress, which is also open source. And WordPress has discounts. It has plugins for payments and things like that. So I was telling the group that maybe our movie ticket system shouldn't just populate our own database, but maybe we should populate the Woo database that was powering the open source, so that when we bought tickets, they would feed into a larger system, and that larger system already had payments working. So we would go from just a boring plain vanilla service that didn't really work or wasn't even commercially ready, to doing all the class requirements, but instead of populating a custom database that didn't have any hooks, that we could populate a WordPress database on the same server. So it seemed to me more logical. But the team, again, has not agreed with that either. So anyway, this cart works. It's integrated with our front end, and it has 1,000 sales reports already included in it. You can add more products to it, and it's a pretty fancy system. So what I built is everything here in blue. I built Now Playing, I built mail, I built movie tickets, I built music. I built a review page where you can go in and enter reviews of movies that are in the database. So I'm populating these from the list. And if you hit submit, then it will go live into the database. I also built a manager site, and there are 2 levels to the manager. There's a store manager who has some functions that he can do. And then there's a regional manager that can do a lot more functions. He looks at all the sales reports. He can add stores and add regions. So the regional manager and the store manager were all added by me, and you can go in and enter employees. These are our classmates here, but you can insert a new employee. I can just put in my mom's name now, and hit insert, and I can go back and see that she is in fact in the database. And let's see if I return to the movie console, there she is. So my mom's now an employee. So the manager functions are in the rubric for phase 2. I built them with ASP.NET, they do edit, delete, select, and insert, which are all requirements in the rubric. So that is already working. Along with the movie tickets, I do have a full shop, a full WordPress implementation, and it has everything in it, including a customer service portal. So in this environment, I have the ability to really drive anything, any plugin that WordPress offers as well. So they have millions of developers. So what we can build as a commercial product is a lot fancier than on our own. And lastly, I built a social media site. And this is just based on, I have a Velocity wholesale ISP, and it has a lot more features like video DJ and the like. I haven't integrated that yet into the portal, but that's all code that I've written before. And since the team decided on MySQL, I really have a short port. I have an installer and everything for it. So I will do that at some point in the future. But initially, I built all this technology in Microsoft SQL Server because that's what the instructor had told me that I needed to do. The team built everything in MySQL, so we had two different database structures. We had two different coding models, and the team just said, "Stop! This is what we're doing." So, so that's really where we were at the time of our last review. I had built all of this technology. The only thing I hadn't done is I hadn't integrated in with their React system, which is what this top menu is. This is React Mobile, and all these pages are React pages. Now, to get my stuff to work, I had to load React pages that called mine. So that was an extra step. But these links here on the top are, in fact, calling React pages, and the React pages are loading sub elements that I had built previously. So all of that works there at the top. I built some other features here. If you click on home, it goes to now playing. If you click on account, it goes to the WordPress My Account function. You can see I have a cart. I have a login for WordPress. So if I wanted to replace theirs, I could. I really don't need their login or sign up pages, and that would just leave the movie tickets in the cart. The cart, we could point to the WordPress cart. So we could do the same functions and the same model that the instructor wanted us to do just by interfacing to a different database on the back end. Again, you can log in here. There's mail here. There's movies here, music, and I even have a magazine that I have gotten integrated. So you can put different content types in what I have added to the system. Down at the bottom, I've added an associate login and a manager, just manager icons. This controls the manager from the sidebar, and that's the reason why is I'm going to take it off the top after I submit this so that the manager functions and the associate logins are separate. Now, this is a separate instance of WordPress, and I have built for my company a WordPress essentially SSO environment that locks any pages driven if the right parameters aren't in the browser that you're working. So in the local storage of the browser you're working. So I will add that before our final project, but I haven't done it quite yet. And then there's some other functions here. These all work. They just go back to WordPress pages right now. So user profile, user feedback, training ground, etc. So all of those things are there. And I have a working menu system, and I built 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 modules. And there's 2 modules in the manager. So I built 9. They've built 3 so far, and I laid out the project. So I think that my contributions are enough. We have 6 people, so I don't think I need to do anything more for the final. But I am building a utility to actually install this whole application without Visual Studio running. And that is mostly done. So I feel like when I get that done this weekend, my role in the project will be more or less complete. The other thing the team asked me to do is to use the same format they were using. So I'm going to move the things that were required for us, like the reviews, to the same model they were using. But the add-ons, the things that I built separately that weren't in the requirements documents, I plan to leave as they are. So that's pretty much it. It's 4:00 here on the 28th. Just a short presentation, but this is a supplement. I'm not asking for any additional credit. I just wanted the instructors to know what I had done, which was a little different. My position is we have a book that was assigned to us. Literally all the technology I'm using came straight out of the book. I've used open source menu systems, and what they've chosen to use with Docker and React isn't in our class structure at all. And it's the equivalent of adding 2 more computer science classes this fall. So I believe allowing them to not only hijack the project, but to add essentially 2 more semesters of technology into what we had to do, I think was inappropriate and a severe academic impact to me, because I literally was done almost at the 6th of November, and we are now 28 days later, so, or 22 days later. So I have lost 3 weeks of my life because of what they chose to do. They did have instructor approval. So I think it's now sort of an issue for me in the department, because they are assigning me pages and then rewriting them, and they're posting applications that don't work when I know they do have working programs, because they run them on our conference calls during the week. So what's being posted on the internet and the GitHub repos is not what they're actually using. So they have sort of gone off in their own subgroup, and they're sharing their real work and they're posting garbage to me. So that's not an honest way to behave. Whereas all my work is in repos on GitHub. I've posted everything as I've gotten it, and they have full access to the lab server that I built that's powering this server. They're all administrators on it. They can change any of the databases. They can update files. They just have chosen not to do that so far. So that's it for today. I'm going to stop there, and we are going to wrap up for the day.